through the lot, now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Tables turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep fitting in love.
Well, 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 well. We got what we wished for, people. We got what we wished for. Guys, you already know what time it is. You know what it is. It's G. We're back in the building. At the time right now of this recording, it is 5 minutes to 1. I said, you know what? Let's spend some time. Liverpool have made a signing, first and foremost. Clap, 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 clap. Round of applause. Liverpool have obviously made a signing, and they have signed Japanese midfielder from Stuttgart, Wataru Endo. If you guys were watching the live that myself, Jerry, K-Mac, and Quasi were on, you would have known we broke the news. Crazy. It was absolutely crazy. You know, we were having a conversation, you know, about something completely different in regards to Liverpool, which kind of tied in, you know, to signings and, you know, why Liverpool have been airing their dirty laundry, so to speak, with, you know, in terms of players linked and things like that. And then guess what happens? Liverpool go out there and sign Wataru Endo. Guys, make sure you're smashing the like, make sure you're subscribing to the channel, and make sure you are sharing this content out. We are on the road to 800 subscribers. Again, big up every single individual who has subscribed, you know, to the channel. It's late for me here, but obviously by the time this gets you know, posted out to you guys, it'll be sometime in the middle of the day. I know that probably by the time this comes out, Jerry probably would have done a video, so you'll already kind of have a little bit of an insight into the player. And I'm sure all of you now have watched your compilations. I've done so myself, hence the reason why, you know, it's taken me so long to actually record this. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I think first and foremost, we've got to look at, you know, Liverpool as a whole. And again, I don't want to go too deep into it. You know, I did speak, and if you haven't watched the live, make sure, you know, you guys go and watch that. It was really good conversation, hearing a lot of opinions in regards to what people think, you know, in regards to Liverpool, you know, how we're doing our business, but not even just our business. I think one of the other, what I say, main things, so to speak, was also having a look at just Liverpool in a general sense, you know, in the transfer market, but off the field, you know, board members, or not even board members, just recruitment staff, or just staff in general, you know, all leaving. You know, we've had the Michael Edwards leave, we've had the Julian Wards leave, we've had other various, you know, staff members leave as well in this last, what I say, year, you know, 12 months, you know, and it's just been a little bit, again, I didn't want to use the word disarray, because I feel like disarray is like literally when you know, everything is literally just gone to shit. But at the same time, I'm a little bit like, it's not disarray, but it's definitely not as stable as it should be and as it was, you know, previously, you know, especially in the last few years, you know, and something that we were famed for. And I think everyone can agree with that. That's a lot of clubs used to look at Liverpool and used to think, okay, well, this is the club, you know, we need to follow what they're doing. You know, their model looks really great in terms of, you know, the recruitment, you know, and how they're doing it, you know, data driven, you know, finding players, right price, you know, all of these kind of various different things behind the scenes commercially, you know, something I mentioned again on the live, you know, all of those kind of things, you know, them building the new stadium and stuff. I know obviously it's come at the consequence, so to speak, of, you know, signing players, but ultimately it's taken us up a level. You know, we weren't at this level before, commercially and on the pitch, and we are now at this level. So, you know, to see that in the last like 12 months or so, things have just kind of gone a little bit downhill, if I'm being totally honest with you. That's where I believe, you know, the kind of problems, you know, within the fan base, where obviously myself, you guys already know my feelings, you know, on the team, the manager and stuff like that. But now I'm seeing a lot more people question it. You know, I'm seeing a lot more people asking these kind of questions. I'm seeing people wondering to themselves, hey, is it really, you know, are things really as, you know, as they seem, you know, because, you know, after having that really poor season, you would have hoped and you would have thought that Liverpool would ultimately, I won't even say bounce back, so to speak, but just more, you know, put themselves in a position whereby, you know, we make sure that it was a one season thing. And I think there are some people, I believe anyway, who look at the situation and for them it's just, it's, I don't want to say blinkers, but I do feel at times it was almost like, don't worry about that season. And for me, I'm like, I'm not even, not being funny, but you can't, you know what I mean? And something I say all the time, and again, this is before we even get into a scout watch, on Wataru, something I always say is the landscape of football has changed, both in the transfer market and on the football pitch itself. So in the transfer market, you're now having to pay top dollar for potential. Before, paying top dollar. So if we take it all the way back, we're talking, you're paying serious money for, a Zinedine Zidane, Luis Figo, and then if you bring it a little bit forward, then you've got the Cristiano Ronaldo's going for world record bids, then Gareth Bale then breaking that, Eden Hazard going for really, really big money, top players, really, really, at the top echelon, elite players, at that moment in time, they were the ones who were going for top money. The project kind of players weren't really going for, like, in relation to the context of time, they weren't really going for those kind of prices. Now it's completely kind of switched because most of the elite players, the really world-class players, and I don't have a lot of people in that category anyway, but for me personally, the ones I would consider to be elite, they're either not leaving the club because they're already at the best clubs in the world, or they're not probably going to go for too much money in terms of how much you'd have to buy them for, because they're probably coming to the end of their days. And most of them are, for me, the ones I would consider to be elite players, they're just not going to leave those kind of clubs, at this current moment in time. So those kind of players will always be, kind of there. But now it's all about potential. We've seen Liverpool bid 110 million, Chelsea bid, was it 115 or whatever it was for Caicedo. Caicedo's not an elite player. He's not a world-class player. He's a very good player. He's not a world-class player, so, but that's today's market. Declan Rice, not a world-class player. Another one, that's the market. The market is obviously, and the need for players, in terms of, especially in certain positions, and defensive midfield seems to be the one for this summer. A lot of teams looking for defensive midfielders, the player they think that it's going to just be that linchpin in the middle of the park and stuff like that. That's now determined what the market, what the market price is for some of these players. So a lot of these players are going for ridiculous amounts of money. We saw Lavia, well, we've seen Lavia, in terms of Liverpool trying to bid for him, Liverpool lowballing the bid. Southampton wanted 50 mil. Liverpool saying, no, we don't value him at 50 million, for first time round. And then in the end, we valued him at 60 million, just because we were too busy faffing about, and he ended up choosing Chelsea anyway. But, that's what we valued him at, because in our minds, that's just how we looked at the market. And we thought, well, for someone of his quality level, even including, I'm assuming they would have included, the potential, but they also would have looked at, in terms of how much experience he's even got. And I'm assuming, again, I don't know, but I would have assumed that that's why they've then lowballed the prices. It could be a case of also as well, listen, the price. Do you really want him? If you don't want him, then, you're not going to bid that price anyway, unless you really wanted, Lavia. Then I reckon Liverpool would have just gone straight in with the 50 million pound package that Southampton really wanted, at the beginning. But ultimately, we didn't view him like that. And it's only really until it got to the real dire stages that we really start thinking, okay, we might need to up these bids. But I do think that, Liverpool, in terms of whoever's running the accounts, in terms of whoever's doing all of these bids, I think we really have misjudged the transfer market in terms of the player prices. But again, it's like I don't want to fault them for that, because you will still find a couple of gems. If you're lucky, you'll find these gems, from certain players. So, and you'll be able to get players at, decent amounts. Who knows what as a Bozolai would probably cost you in today's market, if he didn't have that release clause. Who knows what Alexis McAllister would have cost you if he didn't have that release clause. And having those kind of release clauses allows Liverpool to be able to go in and still do what they have been doing, for a very, very long time. Problem is that there's not too many of those kind of players, of that kind of level in the market in a general sense. So from when there's not those type of, not that many in terms of the level of player, from when there's not that many, you're now looking at, Liverpool being linked with a Decore rate, potentially at first it was like 70 mil, then it's kind of gone up to like or gone down, should I say, potentially. Again, nothing has been confirmed, so to speak. But then it's kind of gone down to like a 50 million or whatever. But you're thinking 50 million for the core? Like, do you feel that that's worth it? But that's the market price. So that's how we're, unfortunately, fortunately, however you see it, that's just how we're judging everything by it. And yeah, I think that's just the situation, that we're in at the moment. I know Liverpool are reportedly in for Amrabat as well. Obviously, we'll talk about that, another time if he is to come. But it's just the marketplace. But I do feel that in the last couple of years, Liverpool really have misjudged the market prices. Because it's slow, it's gone up, and I feel like we're still trying to shop as if it's still 5 years ago. Unfortunately, we've moved on. So Declan Rice will cost you, that kind of money, and Moises Caicedo will cost you that kind of money. Are you ready to pay those type of funds for or those type of fees for these type of players? It remains to be seen. I mean, we did put in that bid, for Moises Caicedo. It happened. We're here now. Would we have gone in for anybody else after that? I don't know. Would we have even bought Endo if we had bought a Caicedo? Who knows? And who knows what Liverpool are still yet to do? At the end of the day, at the time of this, it's the 17th of August, so we still got just under, I think, 2 weeks left of the transfer window to go. Liverpool could still go out there and sign some players to really plug the holes, the massive holes, I believe anyway, that are in the squad. So we'll wait and see. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? But obviously for today, as I mentioned before, we're here to talk about Endo. The Japanese midfielder played, should I say, because now he's Liverpool played for Stuttgart. Obviously confirmed by Fabrizio Romano. Wataru Endo to Liverpool. Here we go. Medical tests booked on Thursday for the Japanese midfielder, who's joining from Stuttgart for 18 million euros. The personal terms agreed in a few hours as Endo asked as Stuttgart captain to leave and follow his dream. Now, before we even dive into this, I'll say it here from now. Again, we kind of broke that news, live on air, hearing about it, for the first time. First reactions, I was like, first of all, who is this person? Then, after doing a bit of the research, Jerry obviously showing us, on air, on the screen, in terms of who Endo was, position. Well, we kind of knew a position, but in terms of just who he was, how he's been, at Stuttgart and all these kind of various different things. Again, the first reaction was, for me personally, and I've had more time to obviously think about it, but the first reaction was kind of like, well, what is going on? And I think the title of the video was "What is going on at Liverpool," which just it was just so coincidental how everything kind of panned out and how everything kind of happened. But that's just how I looked at the situation. Now sitting back, having watched a few of the comps, a few of the highlights, started reading a few of the scout reports that have been made for him, former managers talking about him, former players talking about him. Obviously him being in the Japanese national team as well, just what they say about him, the type of player that he is, and all these kind of various different things alongside, I've tried to, like I said, it's now 1 o'clock in the morning, and I've just tried to just watch like a couple of Stuttgart's games in terms of highlights, just to see what he was all about, alongside the compilations and stuff like that. And I look at that deal now and I'm like, he's 30 years of age. I think one of the things, I don't know if it's in this tweet right here, one of the things that, Fabrizio had actually mentioned, was that it was kind of a shock signing or surprise. One of the two words that he used, it was a shock, even for him, for him to even write that was actually kind of crazy. But the sheer fact that it was surprising, for them. And I think this is a George Schmatt signing. This is a player that he feels can, represents good value for money and all that kind of stuff. We've heard all this is a dream for Endo. In regards to stuff like that, I don't really care. Like, I personally don't care if it's your dream, in terms of dream move and all that kind of stuff, all that stuff. It really doesn't actually matter at the end of the day. What matters is how you perform on the football pitch. I've seen a lot of players make their dream moves to certain clubs and it's not really worked out well. And I've seen the other side, players make their dream move and it's worked out really, really well. Gareth Bale probably falls into both categories, to be honest with you. But, for me, yeah, that kind of stuff and all that jargon, I'm not here to dibby dabby about that. If it's a dream move, great, fantastic. We've been able to fulfill that. Cool. But in a general sense, I'm just concerned about, how he is, on the football pitch in itself. But without further ado, it's a scout watch. So let's obviously dive in. I'm probably going to post this out live. So I might, if I do post this out live, I will be in the chat anyway. So we can just chop it up. I'm not going to make this hopefully too long. So yeah, let's dive into it, man. So obviously got here his heat map. Take off the banner for you guys. Make sure you guys are smashing the like, by the way. If you guys are watching this in the live, please, on the road to 800, as I mentioned before. But yeah, this is his heat map. So mostly he's been playing, and I'll show up his positions in a second. Obviously, mostly he's played in, well, really and truly, actually, I'll show you here, actually. The position he's played in the most in his whole career. So this is obviously when he was back in Japan and stuff like that. He's actually at centre-back, where he's played 239 times, scoring 28 goals and getting himself 11 assists. You know, defensive midfield, he's played in 136 times, centre midfield, and at right back. So, you know, when I look at that, you know, and I'll leave that on the screen for you guys. When I'm looking at that, does that signal that this might be someone that we're all thinking this could be a player who's going to play, you know, as a defensive midfielder cover kind of thing? Or is this going to be a player who may potentially end up playing in that centre back role? Is that a role that you think, and again, let me know what you guys think in the chat, is that a role that you think maybe we've looked at in a general sense, maybe Klopp and Schmatz as well? You know, maybe they've looked at the situation and said, well, you know what, he's very experienced at playing in that centre back position. He's very experienced at playing in the midfield, both defensive and central midfield. And he's also played a few times in his career as a right back. Are we potentially looking at that and saying, maybe this is almost, because we know what Klopp's like, square pegs, round holes and all that. Could this be the new centre back signing that we're actually thinking of? Someone who steps into midfield? Or is it or do you guys think it could be the other way around, where he's going to be the midfielder who steps into defense? It's very, very interesting to see. I think it will be, maybe it might be determined by who else we actually sign in, whether we get in another DM, you know, the Amrabat links are there, whether we sign someone like him, whether we sign someone like a Doucouré, or whether we just sign a DM in a general sense. You know, I'm very, very intrigued because, you know, looking at that, I didn't even really think that, you know, his, you know, he'd mostly played at, you know, central as a centre back, but I was quite shocked at that. But then seeing that, I was thinking, all right, well, if that's the main position that he's been playing throughout his career, you know, he scored so many goals in that position. He's also got quite a lot of assists as a centre back, which I find quite amazing. When we're looking at all of that, is that something potentially we should be thinking about before we even get onto anybody or the club or whatever about position wise and, oh, we still need this and we still need that. We may still need a DM or a centre back, but he kind of covers both. So is maybe Klopp looking at it from that perspective? Is he maybe looking at it thinking, I'm almost killing two birds with one stone here? Obviously, he's 30 years of age. So, and I know I've seen a lot of people, rightly so as well, you know, talking about his age. Obviously, they've got the fear, you know, we let go of a 29-year-old Fabinho. We were supposed to be looking to freshen up, but then at the same time, people wanted experience. So pick one side kind of thing. But I understand in that kind of sense, because I said it on the stream, you know, that we did when the Endo news, I was about to say Enzo, when the Endo news obviously broke. And one of the first things I said is, unfortunately, at Liverpool and for Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp, you need to shave off 2 years of your career. You know, I think that's been proven. I think really only Salah is probably the only one I look at and think probably hasn't really slowed down, so to speak. But he has in some parts, but not majorly like more or less everybody else, you know, in terms of what they were really, really good at, you know, in terms of the intensity, the fitness, the work rate and stuff like that. And James Milner obviously being the exception to the rule. But everyone else is kind of, you've seen that as they've gotten a little bit older, started to creep into their 30s, their powers have started to wane a little bit. And when you're signing a 30-year-old anyway, I don't know how long the contract is going to be for. I'm sure it'll be posted out, you know, by the time this video gets put out. But yeah, you kind of need to shave off a couple of years. And once you shave off those couple of years, then you're going to need to understand and know, okay, cool. So he might only stay here for 2 years, for example. As an example, he might keep himself in good nick. I read somewhere that I think Fabinho had played like 37,000 minutes, I think, in career, and he's only played, I think, 22,000. Again, don't quote me on that. I don't know if that's actually factual, but it was somewhere in those kind of ballparks. Now, straight off that rip, obviously he's older, but he's played less minutes. So does that mean he's going to be a lot more fresher? Maybe so. Maybe so. I like personally, again, like I said, I don't know. But going back, looking at his heat map and everything like that, his heat map does show Again, he's a player who seems to get himself about the pitch, and it's obviously for Stuttgart last season. This is a player who seems to be able to get himself about the pitch. Seems to be able to occupy quite a lot of different areas, especially in that defensive midfield area. He seems to cover that quite well. Something obviously we were talking about with Fabinho in terms of not being able to realistically do that, to the best of his abilities. So, of course, if we're now getting in someone who can ultimately do that, it's one of those. It is one of those. We all cried out, and myself included. Crying out for trying to get in, that type of player, so to speak. In terms of a defensive midfielder. But then I was always of the thought process of, okay, well, we need a specific type, within this team, and then that's when I'll start to believe that this team will then be able to function the way that it needs to, kind of function. But as I mentioned before, ultimately, if he's able to do that, then good to go. Good to go. I assume, in that kind of sense. Again, not seen too much of him. I've only really spent the last couple of hours really trying to get to know him, if I'm being totally honest with you, and get to know, what type of player, he may or may not be. So, really, we're kind of all doing this together. Hence why I'm probably am going to put this out as a live, because I really do want everyone to kind of see and everyone to kind of understand, in terms of the type of player that we're signing. Is he a good signing? How does he obviously fare against, other players and things like that? But, we're seeing here, he played 40 games last season, the 22-23 season, got himself 6 goals, 5 assists. So that's 11 goals and assists in 40 games. Again, very, very good. Very, very good. If he's playing mostly, so last season he played mostly as in that midfield. Yeah, in that midfield position, defensive midfield and then central midfield. And the fact that he was able to get himself goals and assists, quite a lot of those, might I add, last season. Again, it bodes really well. It does bode really well. I am trying to be a little bit more objective than I was at the first reaction, because ultimately the first reaction was like, well, what the hell is this? But taking some time out to take a look at it, which we should all do anyway. Just one of the things. And obviously, you can see here in the systems that he's obviously played in. You can see he's played in a 4-3-3, captain of Stuttgart as well. So he does, one thing that they mention quite a lot is that he has very good leadership skills. Again, those intangibles, whether you like it, whether you don't like it, again, that's a plus point for him regardless. But yeah, as I mentioned, playing in on the right-hand side of a 4-3-3. This is him in a 5-3-2 system. Again, playing on the left-hand side, or 3-5-2, however you want to kind of see it. But again, he's in those positions there in that central midfield. And again, in a 3-4-2-1 formation, the kind of the linchpin in that middle of the park, the tough tackler, the battler, the guy who's supposedly very calm and cool on the ball. Could that be something, that we potentially see? I'm just going to share my screen for you guys now. Hopefully it's working. So again, I'm saying live, but we're doing all of this now because I want you guys to kind of see it. So hopefully you guys can obviously see this on your screen. So obviously I'm taking a look at Wataru Endo, Fabinho, check the core rate, and I think I'll throw in Amrabat in there as well for good measure. Let's take a look. Defensive midfielder, what do we really care about? Shall we see chances created? I'm not really too bothered about that, to be honest. If you're playing as a centre back or as a DM, I'm not really too fussed. But we'll go passes completed. What's his passing accuracy like? Long passes attempted, long passes accuracy. This will be per 90 minutes, by the way. Through balls attempted, passes completed in opponent's half. We'll do our half as well. Forward passes, see how many backward passes he's doing. Let's go to the duels. Duels is something I really do try to always look at quite a lot. So we've got the ground duels contested. We've got ground duels success rates. Aerial duels, that's actually something that he is actually pretty good. I can tell you that from now. Let's look at take on success as well. Unsuccessful take-ons completed. Tackles made and obviously duels contested, which is obviously vitally important. Interceptions, blocks as well. Throw those in there. I think if there's anything I've missed, I'll throw it in. The attack, I'm not really bothered about all of that stuff. Ball recoveries. Oh, yeah. Touches in games. See how many times he kind of gets on the ball. Obviously, guys, we take this all with a pinch of salt because ultimately he is playing for Stuttgart, who weren't really that good, necessarily last season. So we can't always be too objective, so to speak. I am trying to add Amrabat. Oh, yeah, there we go. Amrabat. So you guys can see this for yourself as well. Amrabat. All right, that's all in Serie A. Let's get Premier League. Boom, boom, boom. There's another midfielder we think we should add in there. We've got Fabinho, got Czech Decore, got Sofian Amrabat. I'm not going to do Lavia. I think I'll leave that one, actually, to be fair. I'll just enlarge that for you guys to be able. Hopefully, you can see that all on your screens at this moment in time. So, as I mentioned, we've got Fabinho, Czech Decore, Sofian Amrabat versus Endo. So let's see. So at the moment we can see here, funnily enough, Fabinho's played the most games last season, played 36. Cool. Let's not worry about that too much. As long as the rest are not too far off. 7 is the highest gap between Amrabat and Fabinho. But let's go. So yeah, you can see how he kind of fares up against these guys. Ball recoveries, he's alongside Czech Decore, really, really good. Goals, he's the best out of all of them. Passes attempted. Again, context in terms of how Stuttgart play and stuff like that. So I'm not going to be too fussed, especially because I see Czech Decore's one isn't even that good as well. And Endo's is better than Czech Decore's, but not as good as, say, Amrabat's and Fabinho's. But, it is what it is. Passing accuracy is only 79% in comparison to everybody else. Czech Decore is only 83, but then you've got Fabinho at 88 and then Amrabat at 89%. Long passes attempted, within games. Amrabat attempts is more, just under double for against Endo and Fabinho, and way more than for against Czech Decore. But again, things like that, I guess you look at it in context, so to speak. Amrabat being on the end here, as you guys can see. Czech Decore second from the end. Fabinho number 2, and then Endo number 1. Let's take a look at through balls. Yep, he's doing really good in that market, 0.3 in comparison to Fabinho, 0.2, and then Czech Decore 0.1, and so is Amrabat. Again, this is from defensive midfield / central midfield as well. So some of these guys might have played in certain positions a lot more than others. Hence why I say context is such a key, such a key thing. Duels contested, though, that's something I do really look at. 13.6. Fabinho's is only 8.6. Czech Decore only 8.3. And again, Amrabat 8.5, but 13.6 that he's contesting in games, really, really good. And even the tackles made, I know Czech Decore's got more than 2.5, but he's not really contesting that much anyway in the general sense. But, Endo's is 2.2, which is better than Amrabat and level with, Fabinho. Take-ons completed, 1 per game. So it's not that much, to be honest. The rest are not that much either way, to be honest. So whether you think that that's a stat that we need for a defensive midfielder, again, just want to try and compare him to the others that we've been linked with, and also Fabinho, the player that we're letting go, just to kind of see, how does he kind of fare up. Aerial duels contested, he's contesting 4 per game, which is really, really good in a general sense, and hence the reason why, Fabinho's is better, but he's only contesting 1.8 per game, and Endo's contesting 4 per game. Ground duels, again, another thing I really do like to look at. 9.6 ground duels contested per game, and he's got a success rate of 50%. Fabinho's were only contesting 6.8, and it was under 50%. Czech Decore, Amrabat is contesting 7.4 per game, but he's only, again, under 50%. And Czech Decore is doing 6.4, and again, it's just over at 54%. But, I'm seeing, Endo here, 9.6 that he done last season, and he's just at 50%, so pretty decent. And then interceptions, he's getting 0.8 per game. This is where Czech Decore really does shine, because he's getting 1.9 interceptions per game, so he really is stopping, the threat as much as he possibly can. Fabinho's only 1.3, and Amrabat was only 1. So, looking at that, to be fair, Amrabat's stats are really, really good, so I can actually understand why, Liverpool potentially are in for him, and I can understand also why, Manchester United, would be in for someone like him. But ultimately, is that what we need? in a general sense. Is that what we're looking for from a new signing, in that kind of position, so to speak? Looking here at the kind of style of play, of Endo. And, one of the things that was mentioned was he kind of reminds people in Germany anyway of a Claude Makelele. They mentioned here on the Bundesliga website, constantly on the lookout for danger, deep in the engine room, and immediately aware of the right options going forward. Endo has all the tough yet accurate tackling abilities and an eye for a defense splitting pass as a former France legend, Makelele. So again, are we looking at someone who could be potentially really good on the ball? We'll take a look at some of his stats actually, from F Brief. Again, guys, like I said, I'll probably be posting this out just after Jerry, so make sure you head over to the Jerry James Show to check that out. But let's have a little look here. Let's enlarge this for the peeps. Again, we looked at a little bit of this, during the live stream. This is kind of his general kind of stats, but let's dive into them a little bit. So shooting, this is obviously top 5 leagues in Europe at this moment in time. Let's actually enlarge that for you guys to see. I want to make sure it's really, really clear for everybody. So yeah, you can see here, the shooting. These are the shooting stats. Average shot distance, don't really care about that. Shots on target, it's pretty okay. I mean, he plays again in that defensive midfield kind of position, so fair enough. Goals and stuff like that. Passing was where I was a little bit like, okay, doesn't really do too well in terms of his passing attributes in a general sense. Will that hamper him playing for Liverpool? Will that even matter? Maybe we get him in to do a specific job and do a specific role. I don't really know. So, that's where I'm a bit like, okay, fair enough. But again, like I mentioned, all of these were quite poor, in a general sense, in terms of the passes completed, attempted, and completion, distances and stuff like that. You guys can obviously all see that here. Then boom, 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 boom. We scroll down. Yeah, passing, yeah, like I mentioned, not really his strong game, which is funny because they mentioned that, he can play these splitting passes and stuff like that. And watching him, in the highlights, again, he's got it in his locker. He's definitely got it in his locker. He can definitely pick out a pass if needed be. But that's obviously, I guess, when he's playing in those kind of deeper areas and he's able to drive with the ball. That's something that I saw quite a lot. And something that stats probably wouldn't even tell you, so to speak, was, his driving, in a general sense with the ball. I did kind of like it. If I'm being, totally honest with you. But it's funny because the stats tell you not really that great, but maybe that's just more position-wise, context behind everything. Context. That's what I say about this, the eye test thing. Sometimes you'll look at the eye test and be like, this person is perfect for whatever it is that you need to do. But then it depends on what you need them to actually do. Are they going to be able to do those things within the team? Because then that will make them the right profile of player, no matter who it is, where they've come from, etc. So, there is a little bit of that to it, in a general sense. But, as we see here, progressive carries only 1.02 per game. Is that the instruction from Stuttgart? Again, I don't know how they play in a general sense. So let me not sit there and lie and say I've looked into Stuttgart, because I really haven't, just more looked into him. Touches in games, again, 58.06. I mean, he's playing sometimes in a deeper role, so I'm not too mad about that. And again, how Stuttgart play, etc. Take-ons attempted only 1.77, puts him in the 63rd percentile. Successful take-ons only 0.89, again quite low in that kind of regards. And then when we take a look at his defensive stats, you can see here number of dribblers tackled 1.18 per game, puts him in the 79th percentile. It's pretty decent. Dribbles challenged, number of unsuccessful challenges plus number of dribblers tackled, 2.63, which puts him in the 80th percentile. Passes blocked, you can see here. Clearance is really, really good. That's where he actually excels at. And watching some of the highlights, that was one of the things I noticed a lot about him. Again, context because of the team that he plays for, was he was getting a lot of these clearances. He was always there. He was always able to snuff out that kind of danger. When an opposition was just about to take a shot, he seemed to always be the one in that position to, try and stop that and try and nullify that. So Again, plus point for him, again, and also context in terms of playing for Stuttgart, who are seemingly under pressure, quite a lot. But in a general sense, it's tricky. It's very, very tricky, because when I look at the stats and look at, the player himself, I'm kind of just like, would I say happy? Ah, unfortunately, his signing is going to then more depend on who else that we sign, if I'm being totally honest with you. Unfortunately, because of the situation that we're in terms of the players that we need for the season, if you're, say, the only one that we sign in that kind of area, in that kind of position, then no, I'd say, it's not really he might turn out to be genuinely a good player, so it'll be difficult to really judge him now before he's even kicked the ball. But if you just ask me in terms of just the window in itself, I'd say it was definitely not really a good window, for Liverpool, in a general sense. But obviously, look, I've spoken here for over 30 minutes. As I mentioned before, Jerry's probably already done this video. This is just more my kind of take, behind him, in a general sense, trying to take a bit of a deeper look, so to speak, looking at how he compares, obviously, to, his counterparts, the Amrabats, the Corres, the Fabinhos. How does he really compare? Honestly, if I'm being honest, if you had to pick between him and Amrabat, I'd probably say I would rather go Amrabat. But there could be more to this deal than meets the eye. Commercially, we already know Liverpool signing Minamino, and obviously how that might help commercially. This might also do that as well. If he does play in that defensive midfield position, he can play at centre back, he can play at right back as well, and in central midfield. So the versatility straight away is something that I know Klopp is really, really going to love. And again, in terms of his kind of style of play in a general sense, you can tell he's got boundless amounts of energy. He is positionally aware, got really good IQ in that kind of sense, especially in that defensive third. It's just really whether he's going to be able to utilize his attributes, so the stuff that I'm mentioning, if he's going to be able to utilize that in the Liverpool team because of the way that we actually play. As I mentioned about his passing, the fact that it's not that good does worry me a little bit, because I feel that unless you're genuinely getting in a player, again, this is plays in defensive midfield, unless you're getting in a player who literally, I don't want you to do anything else but just tackle, then it's going to then become a problem moving forward if he's not really that great at passing, getting the ball forward, so to speak. And that's where it might hinder us, because we are a team who do like to play in transition. I did mention he is, though, a player who does seem to get himself in the right position. So maybe he'll be able to help us out in terms of snuffing out some of these problems, defensively, in the transition, where Liverpool are so weak at it. Maybe he might be able to help with that. I'm not saying signing him he is the guy who's going to, would I say, necessarily play there, but he might play there. But he can also play at the centre back position and at right back. So could we potentially be looking at that as almost cover, so to speak, for someone like a Konate? I don't really know, guys. I honestly, I don't really know. But in a general sense, look, Liverpool have signed Wataru Endo. Let's wait and see. Let's not judge him. Let's not, berate him or anything like that. I think it is really, 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 really a wait and see type of situation. And then obviously we can kind of move from there. It'll be interesting. I believe he'll probably end up playing in that first game, in his first game, sorry, at the weekend, or at least be in the squad. He has already played this season, and he's played a game for Stuttgart, so he's, would I say, match fit, so to speak. So don't be surprised if you do obviously see him in the squad, potentially even in the starting lineup. But that all remains to be seen. But guys, listen, we've come to the end of the video. Love for everybody obviously tuning in. If you're watching this live, big up yourself. Make sure you smash that like button. If you are watching this on the replay, again, the same thing. Smash that like, hit that subscribe button. Let me know your thoughts on Wataru Endo. Do you think it's a good signing by Liverpool? If you don't, why? Heck, if you do, let me know in the comments why you don't think this might be the right signing for Liverpool. I'm G. Peeps, we're out, man. Love.